from Lavender Witch in the UK. I'm sat with you this morning in my garden enjoying the sunshine, and I decided to make a little video about witch runes. Very often I'm asked about witch runes and what they're for and what they're used for. Many hear the word runes and automatically think of things like the Elder Futhart runes. So they've never actually heard of witch runes and what they're for. This kind of saddens me because it means that they're dying out, and so it's one of the reasons that I started to teach, and I also wrote a small book on the subject. So that excites me at the same time because I get a chance to share my knowledge on the subject and how I use them. So whether you've heard of witch runes or not, or use them or not, these runes are quite mysterious and there's not a lot of information out there. That is one of the reasons I'm doing this video today. I love to share the information I have on these lovely stones, and I have learned quite a bit over the years because I use them quite regularly. They're one of my favourite divination tools. I don't pretend to be an expert in any way, shape or form, so this is no means a definitive guide, more my own personal take, my perspective, and just kind of a starting point for you to grow and learn about witch runes yourself. So what are witch runes? Well, they're not an alphabet. They are, however, a series of symbols that can all be used in a whole range of different ways. You can use them in your magical workings and use those symbols, and they are also a really good divination tool. Each of the symbols have their own meaning and can be used for divination or magic individually or as a group. There are various versions of witch runes. Some people use a set of 8, some a set of 10, and some a set of 13. I prefer to use the set of 13, that is the original set. It also has a lot more symbolism for me. There are 13 moon cycles in a year, 13 weeks in each part of the wheel of the year, and I was actually initiated as a witch at the age of 13. So 13 is quite a nice number for me. I was also born on Friday the 13th, so 13 is kind of a special number. But it is completely up to you which set you use, if any. So go with your own heart, follow your own path. I know I keep saying that in many of my videos, but it's completely true and I really mean it. So many runes originated at first in some part from a written language. Witch runes are no different. It's just they weren't letters or words, but more symbols that had different meanings. But they could all be used for different purpose. In more recent years, they've become quite fashionable and quite popular tool of divination and magic. Witch runes come in all different shapes and sizes. I actually have a wooden set. Mine are made from wooden discs, and they all have the pictures and things on them on the wooden discs, but you can also get them made of clay, made of stone. Some people even put them on crystals, so it's entirely up to you. It is relatively easy to craft your own set of runes. Once you actually get a feel for the witch runes, you might find that you'd like to do that. Alternatively, there are many crafters out there that do make the different various sets. I actually handcraft and make the set of 13 runes myself from various woods because I love that connection not only with the witch runes but also with the energies of the trees and the wood within those sets. So let's look at the 13 symbols of the witch runes individually, and then I'll talk to you after that of how you can use the witch runes for readings. The first witch stone that we have here is actually the sun. The sun symbol is very simple and looks like a drawing of the sun. It has a very masculine energy and symbolises the beginning of something new. Making good decisions and optimism, having good health and vitality, healing, warmth and joy, the nourishment and the hearing of good news. It's also linked to midsummer and the element of fire. When used in a rune reading, depending on what the question is that you've asked in your reading, it's a really nice rune to come up and will usually mean that you're heading in the right direction. This rune has a really positive energy, and it can also be used to represent your own self-esteem or ego. Often by reading the runes close to this one, you can find out how you are seen by others or how you see yourself. So it's a really nice rune. I like this one. This one is the moon. This symbol, as you'd expect, is drawn like a crescent moon. It is associated with the feminine, the element of water, and has a more introspective energy. It symbolises intuition and spirituality, as well as your own subconscious mind. It can also dictate long-term changes, illusion and transition. It has a link to Yule and the winter solstice, and of course, as you'd expect, the lunar cycle. If you see this rune in a reading, it usually means that things may not be as they seem. Just how things are often hidden under the moonlight, things may not be as they seem. It's the same in a reading, so you should tread with care. Don't always let your first impressions guide you, but rather listen to your inner voice and you will see the truth behind the illusion. The moon also takes you on a journey of self-discovery, so your own spiritual journey may be the path that needs walking at this time. So it could symbolise a clairvoyance, a psychic ability, or just magic. Okay, next we have flight. This rune symbol is usually pictured as waves of air, but can also often be depicted as a feather. It is linked to the Sabbat of Imbolc and also the element of air. It indicates travels, quick changes, but also communication and information, networking, news and word of mouth. If I was to see flight in a rune reading, I would look closely at what other runes were close by it, learn more about a change that is coming into your life. It may mean that there's a house move, or that you will maybe travel, or it can mean that you need to flee from a certain situation. It will definitely mean that there is some sort of change coming, and it's usually needed sooner rather than later. This one is the rings, also sometimes referred to as union. This is an unusual rune as it's linked not to one Sabbath but actually the whole wheel of the year. The rings tell us that everything in the world is connected and it represents being one with the universe. It symbolises the never-ending cycles of death and rebirth and the circumstances that connect people and all those combining different elements to create something. Within a rune reading, this rune could also mean that you would come into contact with people that you will share something with. As the rings represent connections with people, that could be anything from a wedding, a family gathering, a gathering of friends, or a community, your social groups, or all kinds of partnerships. So you might think that it isn't connected to you within that reading until you actually look further, and then you will see the connection. Next we have romance. As you might imagine, this rune is all about your emotions and your relationships. It does represent harmony, love, friendship, but also protection and boundaries and balance. It has deep emotional connections, so can quite often mean a soulmate or being in love with somebody who loves you back. It is linked to the time of Beltane and also the element of fire. If you're having a reading and you're asking about a relationship, then seeing this rune is usually good news. It means that you're either in a healthy relationship that will last, or that you have a relationship coming to you that will be quite positive and a good one. Unfortunately, this rune could also be a warning. Something may have fallen out of balance in your relationship. Especially be aware of any codependencies or emotional abuse, and be sure to protect yourself and make sure you set your own boundaries. If I ever pull this rune in a reading, I usually look to see which other runes are next to it, just to try and kind of clarify which way that rune would go for the reading before I would actually speak about it. Next we have woman. This rune, as you'd expect, is very feminine. It's also linked to the element of earth. It represents a traditional female, the abilities and characteristics. It is about being rather than doing, and about feminine of the world. The woman in this instance is very passive. They allow us to heal, very nurturing and compassionate, also representing fertility and caring, and a mother or healer. It can also represent motherhood, female sexuality, and also creativity around the home. Within a reading, it could simply be telling you of a woman that's involved in the situation you're asking about, but it could also be saying that there's some healing needed. Always look to the runes closest to it for clues of what this would actually mean for you. As we do have woman, we also have man. As you would expect, this is masculine, and as with the female, it represents the more traditional male characteristics and abilities. This rune in itself is quite phallic in shape and is a polar opposite of woman. This is more about being action and the masculine of the world. It is also linked to the element of fire and is associated with fatherhood, but with leadership, courage, willpower, and protection of your loved ones. Also being a provider, being confident and empowered with strength. Seeing this rune in a reading could just be pointing to a man in your life and somebody that's male that's actually influencing the situation you're asking about. But it usually means that it's actually time to take action. You need to stand up for yourself and protect what matters most to you. Next we have a really nice rune. I like this one. This is Harvest. This is one of my favourite runes, not only because it's linked to the full moon and Lammas, which is one of my favourite Sabbats. It's also linked to the elements of earth, and it has a really lovely picture, almost like a smiley face. It really resonates with me personally, and I often pull this rune myself in readings. Harvest represents the blessings of investing in yourself. It's rewards and prosperity, as well as sacrifice and manifesting. It's also learning and good luck, and that you will see the fruits of your labour. It can also mean self-employment or some sort of achievement and fulfilment. Also for education and providing for yourself. If you were to see this rune in a reading, it will usually mean that you're finally going to receive what you seek. It also represents the sacrifices that you will need to achieve what it is that you want. Always keep in mind and remember that the harvest is at the end of a cycle, and it also means getting rid of the old. So never ever underestimate the price of success, and no matter how small, there is usually some sort of sacrifice. Next we have the Crossroads. Crossroads is probably just as you would expect from its name and also its picture. It means that there's a major life decision and that you are actually at a crossroads. Maybe not knowing what to do next. Maybe feeling stuck or afraid of moving forward. Remember, there are many ways to reach the same destination, and the shortest path is not always the best choice to make. The journey you take to get there also matters a lot more than the destination in itself. Don't be afraid to move forward. Trust in your own heart, how you feel within yourself, and how you want to make the right choice. The crossroads in a reading will represent free will. It will also represent a transition or a choice, or possibly a gateway. You will probably need to take a leap of faith. So it's very similar to the Wheel of Fortune. It's also linked to the moon and the element of air. So it can be a nice rune to get in a reading, but it usually does mean that you have a decision to make. Next we have a really positive Wytch rune, which is the star. The star represents hope, joy, aspirations, a place of rest and blessings, and the fulfillment of your greatest wishes. So being an inspiration to others, or being true to yourself, and actually being accepted for who you truly are. It's linked to Ostara and the full moon, also the element of air, and is extremely feminine in energy. The star is a confirmation, almost like a green light, so to speak. So I see it as a sign to go after what it is you want. When you see it in your reading, it usually means everything is coming into alignment for your life's purpose. So if you've recently gone through a difficult time, then hang on in there, because you're soon going to reach the light at the end of the tunnel and everything's going to come good. This rune is waves. Waves are just that, they're waves like in the ocean. Obviously linked to the element of water, but also the waning crescent and dark moon. The waves represent being moved or letting go, kind of surrendering and release, being in the moment and just trust. It also has a really deep connection with the spiritual world. If you see waves during a reading, you may be feeling out of control or overwhelmed at the moment. It's telling you to actually let go, just surrender to the insecurities and go with the flow of things. Stop fighting and trying to control what you can't. You can't control everything in your life, and sometimes you just have to trust. So leave whatever it is that's troubling you in the hands of the universe, and know that nothing happens without reason. It will all work out in the end. You just need to reconnect with your life. So it's a really nice one, but if you're quite insecure or you struggle with actually giving up that sort of control, you might not like seeing this rune in a reading. Next we have the scythe. Linked to the element of air and the autumn equinox, the scythe is actually a warning. It usually depicts a danger. It represents sudden change, endings, unexpected results, manipulation and disaster. It is also a tool in itself, being a scythe, so it can also represent crafting. Seeing this rune in a reading means that you usually need to walk away from something or someone. It is a severe warning that there is danger near, either an illness or an injury, or a conflict is actually coming and something needs to end and you need to end it now. If this reading doesn't fit with you, there is also the other element of the scythe, so don't worry. It could be that it's just depicting that of a tool. So it can also be associated with learning or gaining knowledge or a craftsmanship. Always look to its closest runes for further information before fearing the worst. But always listen to this rune. To ignore the scythe can lead to real serious disaster, and it definitely doesn't benefit you in the long run. The eye is, as you would expect, linked to spirit. It's also linked to the time of Samhain. The eye represents a lifting of the veil, seeing the unseen. It's also psychic abilities and visual activities, bearing witness, an initiation or an awakening, a judgment, or revealing the truth. It can also be trials and rites of passage. If you were to get this rune in a reading, it's about revealing the truth. If you see the eye, the most important rune is actually the one that it is facing, the one that it's actually seems to be looking at. This is the rune that really, really needs your focus. So always look to that rune to see what is either needing the truth revealed or that veil lifting for you. Okay, so now that we've gone through all 13 Wytch Runes, let's have a look at what you can do with them. There are various ways you can work with your Wytch Runes. My favourite is a full rune cast. This uses all 13 of the runes and gives a much better, fuller picture so you can look at nearby runes to give more clarity. You can also ask a Wytch Rune just a question and just pick one rune to answer it. This will work if your runes are in a bag, so you can hold the bag, shake it and just draw one rune out from it. Concentrate on your question, gently place your hands inside the bag and pick out of the rune, and that would be your answer. I struggle with this kind of reading because you are only getting one rune, and quite often with Wytch Runes more clarity is needed. So like I said, a full rune cast is usually my reading of choice. To do a full rune cast, you will need a cloth that has a central point marked. This will make it easier to know which runes to read first. So place your cloth on a table or on any flat surface. If you keep your runes in a bag or a box, hold them in your hands and concentrate on your question. Even if you're really just doing a general reading, still take the time to concentrate and connect with your runes. So just hold them for a few minutes, meditate on what's going on, or actually say the question out loud if that makes you feel better. Now cast all of the runes onto your cloth. Look only at the runes for the time being that face upwards. Any that have landed face down are disregarded unless they are really close to another that needs clarity. If the eye has landed face upwards, look at the rune that the eye is looking at. If there's a rune directly in front of the eye, then this is the rune that needs your extra attention. The Wytches Runes that are closest to the central point are the most relevant. The further away they get from the centre, the less important they are. As I mentioned before, those that have landed face down are disregarded. But runes that fall very close together or land on top of one another usually have a combined meaning. So you would actually turn over anything that is not facing upwards, just so that you can actually gain that clarity to the one that is either close to it or on top of it. Even if they don't seem immediately compatible, they will actually have a link. I hope you enjoyed looking at those runes with me. There are other ways that you can use the Wytch Runes in magic and divination, but I'll leave it there for now. The Wytch Runes are a really magical tool, not only for a witch, but anybody that can actually connect with them. So I encourage everybody just to learn about them, work with them, do your own research and just keep going down your own journey and sort of broaden that knowledge of the Wytch Runes. If you do choose to continue learning more, there are a few resources and things out there. I will pop a couple of links in the comments of some of them that I have found useful. I will also put a shameless personal plug in there of my own book and pop that link in the comments too. But the more you work with the runes, the more you connect with them, the more you will find what a magical tool they can actually be. So to share the knowledge and to share that information, make sure that the magic isn't lost. So I encourage you to do that, and I hope you will do that. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found it of interest and maybe a little bit of help for you. If you have enjoyed the video, please hit subscribe and follow my channel. You can also get in contact with me via Facebook or Instagram or my own personal website. If you have any questions, feel free to pop a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I wish you a wondrous magical journey along your own path, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.